It's time for the Covrprice top 10 list. Deadpool, Wolverine, X-Men dominating the list. Let's look at the books that are on there. Some new, some old. Let's break it down up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hello, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. Before we get started, like, comment, subscribe. Check out the description of this video for a link to my IG, my Whatnot. We do Whatnot sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and next Monday night is Marvel, Silver, and Bronze. There's also a link to my eBay store as well as my email. And let's just jump right into the list. Let's get started. Some familiar faces and some new faces on this list, some new books. Some very new books. Let's take a look at the list. And coming in at number 10 on the list is Fall of the House of X. Number 2, the Art Adams 1 in 25 variant. This Art Adams depiction of Mystique. Now, I've said this before in other avenues. Art Adams, these good girl art covers have been very popular recently. You know, going all the way back to the one he did with Firestar and Young Allies. Now, there is a connection here long term. I think the lower the print run of the book, the less popular the book is, the more these are desirable because a 1 in 25 is harder to get. But I think Adams, I like his earlier work better. If you look back at Long Shot and X-Men Annual 14, even Gumby Summer Fun Special, I thought his line work was a lot more detailed and a lot more interesting, a lot of cross-hatching. It seems to me like he's just doing the same thing over and over again, however, with great success. This book came out a week ago, and it's going for about 40 bucks. We know why. It's popular. It's sexy. It's Art Adams. X-Men covers have been rising popularity. Mystique is also a top-selling X-Men cover character. It's just all Art Adams popularity. Let's look at number 9. And number 9 is Harley Quinn, number 50. No, I'm sorry. Number 39, the Mindy Lee 1 in 50. And this has very much like a 50s retro sci-fi vibe to it. It is a 1 in 50. And this is also a book that came out last week, over $100, upwards of $150 for a raw. That is an expensive book. And I mean, the regular book is $6. You know, Harley Quinn is popular. I'm not really familiar with Mindy Lee's work. Let's see what it says here. What a great cover from artist Mindy Lee. Harley is known for her wild covers, and this one is on the list. Cover depicts the character in a colorful spacesuit facing off against robotic minions. It is a great cover and also a retailer incentive variant, making it even harder to find. We tracked 8 copies sold at a 7-day trend of 63% with a high sale of $150 for a raw near mint copy and current near mint raw FMV of $124. Beware, brand new, popular, 1 in 50, hard to find, long term. Question mark. Let's go to number 8, and we're kind of following a trend here. This is the Stanley Art Germ Lau variant for Something is Killing the Children 36. It's a retailer thank you incentive. It's about a $30 book. And again, this came out last week. So numbers 8, 9, and 10 all came out last week. That's where that trend's going to end. Art Germ is one of the most sought-after cover artists in the industry today. His artwork has a huge fandom. Moreover, Something is Killing the Children is one of the more popular series. I mean, it was really popular, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago? Pair these two factors with the limited retailer thank you variant, and you have a highly desirable chase. And again, if we look at the values of this, we're looking at, about a $40 book. So a little more reasonable than the Harley 1 in 50. But still a pricey book for something new. And if you like it, if you love the cover, go for it. I wouldn't shell out a lot of money for this right now. Now we're going to go to number 7 on the list, and we'll be in some familiar territory. And it is Uncanny X-Men 221, the first appearance of Mr. Sinister from 1987. And I'm not even going to go to the breakdown because I know there are spoilers. And I haven't seen it yet. Let's look at the 9/8 overtime. And we can see, I always like to take a look at where things were. Now we have just one book under 8,300 on the census. 25% of them are in 9/8, 2 9/9s. And so right before, I like to take a look at like 2020 prices. In 2020, it started climbing above $200. It really hadn't, it kind of settled in. There was a little bit of a hint of Mr. Sinister in one of the X-Men films, and then it jumped up May 2021 up to $600, and it's been correcting ever since. But you can see, really, for the last nearly year, it's been pretty consistent in the $250 to $300 range. Right about $275 is where I'd put it. Recent sales, auction, $262, $256. I don't know what this $660 auction means. That is odd. Sorry. That is cuckoo banana pants. That doesn't even make sense. $660. What is, I don't understand. That is insane. Somebody really overspent for this book. I mean, $660, you could have gotten two of them easily for $660. Wow, that is crazy. You know, the rest of the sales, again, $250, $300. I mean, you buy two and you'd still have cash to spare, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. Look, you could get one here right now for $275 and another one for $300. You'd have two of them and you'd have $85 left. I don't understand. Anyway, so this has been staying pretty consistent. As I said, for the last year, I think people still anticipating the idea of Mr. Sinister coming to the MCU to live action at some point. We haven't seen that. Let's go to the next book on the list, which I find kind of interesting. Marvel Team Up number 14. Now, this was an odd one because it's Spider-Man and Invincible. It's a cross-company team up. And this is from 2006. It's an incredibly expensive book. And let's go to the sales figures. I mean, look here. I want to look at the census. Only 413 on the census, and only 17.7% of them in 9/8, which is kind of unusual for a 2005 book, but it's a book that's worth getting graded in lower grades. The 9.8, I mean, you know, this book has been up to about $1,000. And then at the end, even in 2022, dropped under 200. And then for whatever reason, it has been jumping back into the $700 to $1,000 range lately. I guess maybe just there's so few of them and Invincible has become so popular. Let's see what we have to say about that. In this issue, we see Invincible hop through the multiverse and end up in the main Marvel Comics universe. He assists Spidey and the Avengers in a battle against Doc Ock. As most fans know, the rights to IP and comics vastly differ from those of film rights. It looks like Amazon didn't have the right to use Spider-Man, but they still handled the multiverse hop in their own way. Instead of running into our favorite roll caller, Invincible hops to the multiverse and ends up assisting Agent Spider in the battle against Professor Ock. It's an elegant way of dealing with a pivotal moment, also navigating leaderboard restrictions over Marvel IP. I haven't watched Invincible yet. I probably should. Maybe that's what's jumping the sales on this. And, you know, Invincible, like shows like The Boys or several years ago, Walking Dead, would always kind of rise as the new season came out and then kind of tail off a little bit. Let's go to number 5. Now, this is an interesting book. X-Men 53, the first appearance of Onslaught, the first full appearance. Cheap book, $10, $15. 9/8, just about 100. If we look at the historical value, it did. I mean, really what's interesting is it was a $200 book pre-boom. And then it went up to 282, and it's come way down. So, I mean, well under 100. This book is overcorrected, and it could be a supply and demand. There are 900 on the census. 57% of them are 9.8s, and it really doesn't. It's not worth getting this book graded in under 9.8. This is a book that if you feel you have a really sharp copy, pre-screen it. Now, are we going to get 97 spoilers? Yeah, spoiler. Okay, I'm moving on. I think I'm going to skip the next couple of updates, and then we're going to go to number 5 on the list, and it's Uncanny X-Men 333, the first appearance of Bastion. Again, upwards of $20+ for a high-grade copy. Now, 9.2 recently sold for $124. Now, this is a book. Onslaught was always, I think, more of a key. This is a book, only 58 of them on the census. 43, 75% of them are 9.8s. There's a 9.9. Because you're not going to get this book slabbed. I mean, we look at even here, it did jump to $101 in July of 22, and then it doesn't sell too much. There aren't that many of them out there. It settled at about a $75 book. They're probably not even many books available. I would think of this. I'm sure I have copies of this somewhere in the back issue bin, with other 300+ X-Men. Let me see something. No, I just bought a recent collection. It does not have 333 in it. I was just looking that up. But I think that's, this obviously has X-Men 97 ties. It's a book that low census count, not a lot have been slammed. Interesting to see if that jumps up. Or I think what happens is with these minor secondary characters, especially in the TV shows, they get this bump and then it's not sustained because the characters don't have enough follow through in the media in which they're portrayed to then now they may get a bump enough that they stay a little bit above where they were, but like the first Leapfrog, did his appearance in She-Hulk really propel, or Immortal Man propel those characters, or Mr. Immortal propel those characters to the stratosphere? No, they were the flavor of the month. Think Thanos Copter, right? Maybe there are more people that want it because they like the TV series and like the character, like that idea, whatever it was, that it'll make it more than it was. But also you're going to see more people digging it out of their back issue bins. More are going to come to light. Let's go to, where are we? Number 4, New X-Men 114, the first appearance of Cassandra Nova. I actually have 2 of these headed out in a pre-screen tomorrow, or today if you're watching it. Look, wow, near mint copies up to over $100. This is insanity to me because it's a fairly recent book. I've been grabbing this book quite a few times in recent months. Even prior to this, once it was kind of rumored and I'd see the book, it's plentiful. They're out there. About $160 in a 9.8. Okay, let's take a look at the census. And again, there's 617 of them in a Universal Blue Label. 61% in a 9.8. It's a 2001 book, paper quality for Marvel, and it does have that entirely black spine. That's the tricky part. And we can see this has been bouncing all over the place. It did hit over $100 a couple of times pre-boom, but it never went that high. So there hasn't been a huge fluctuation. We think this is the character we're seeing in Deadpool Wolverine. It remains to be seen. Okay. And they're plenty out there. Just look here. There, I see 3 9.8s right away on eBay. So you have your choice. If you want a 9.8, you could probably get it for around fair market value, maybe even a little less. And there are plenty of raws out there. Believe me, I just had one on my Whatnot sale the other night. Not a 9.8 contender, but not a bad book either. Okay, let's look at number 2 on our list. And old friend, New Mutants 98, the first appearance of Deadpool. We all know what this is. You know, you're going to have to pay several $100s, $300-$400 for a nice copy. If you're lucky enough to get a 9.8, you're talking about what, $1,300 and change. Let's take a look at that 9.8, and we can see it boomed, right? Now, pre-boom, it was wasn't quite $1,000 book, was kind of approaching that. And then combined another movie, like we could say, there's a bump here. Another movie, and the comic boom, it jumped to nearly $2,500 and has been correcting. But this decrease has not been as steep as a lot of other keys. It's kind of been holding its own, even though it's lost nearly half its value from its peak. And there are a lot out there. There are 24,000 copies on the census, 4,300 in a 9.8. This is a book that you're going to get graded lower than a 9.8. Probably makes sense down to about 9, maybe even 8.5 to get it graded. But there's so many sales. I mean, look at the sales just on one day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sales of a 9.8 on CGC, right? All between $1,299 and $1,400. So the market is where it is, right? Both auction and fixed prices about the same. This is a $1,380 book. You know, you can nickel and dime in either direction. The question is it going to see a jump before the movie comes out? I don't think so. Everybody knows what this is. Is it going to see a dip after the movie? I don't think a big one, maybe a little bit more of a correction, but this is a key that everybody wants. The only thing I think working against this book is it is 1991, so it is a modern book. People were taking care of books at the time. This census number is going to continue to grow. There are copies out there in collections. People have had it since childhood, that sort of thing. I have a couple that are going to be going out to CGC soon. Both probably 9496, but we'll see when I get it back from CGC. And let's look at number 1. Oh God, here it is again. Here we are again with Dazzler number 1. This isn't even her first appearance, ladies and gentlemen. This book was a complete joke for 43 years or 42 years, right? It's Dazzler number 1. There are plenty of them out there, and it's not an expensive book. You can get it for $20. It's $175 at a 9.8. Let's look at the trend. I mean, it did, you know, it wasn't even $100 book necessarily in a 9.8 pre-boom, and then it kind of jumped up over 200, and it's been up and down ever since. It's kind of on the downtrend now. It's interesting. There are only 2,000 on the census. I find that kind of interesting because there's so many of them, and a quarter of them are 9.8s. I think the thing is, today, I don't think it makes sense to grade this book unless it's a 9.8. But you're talking a book that's 43 years old. Now, Dazzler was direct sales only, and there was a big push because she was an X-Men character, so there was some popularity there. But I mean, this is disco, right? This is, you know, Xanadu. It is my childhood. And I remember going to the flea market where the guy who would soon open the first comic book store in my area was set up, and he had copies of Dazzler number 1, but you had to order them ahead of time. You had to put the order in or something. And I got my Dazzler 1. It's sitting at home, you know, somewhere in the box between, you know, in the D box between, I don't know, something that begins with DA and DC Comics Presents or something. What conditions, and I don't know. I mean, I read it. I didn't read it to death because it was meh. It's a weird book. So I want to just take a minute to look at the numbers 11 through 20. I always find that kind of interesting. This I have. It's a Dave Stevens cover. For those of you that don't know, and I've seen people on YouTube, comic book people who should know better, $1,200 in a 9.8. I have this book. I don't remember if it's a square bound or not. And what's frustrating is I bought this run. I bought Cheval Noir as it came out monthly, but I missed issue number 7 for some reason. It's not in my collection. It never was in my collection. And that's the other cover that Dave Stevens did. For those of you that are not aware, why is Dave Stevens becoming so popular? There was a documentary, Dave Stevens Drawn to Perfection. It's on Amazon. I suggested it's a very interesting watch, especially if you're into comic book history. And I assume that if you're watching this video, you are. Taken way too soon. Quite the shame. Another Art Adams cover, Jackpot and Black Cat, number 2, a 1 in 25. This was on the list last week for the first appearance of the long-lost Summers brother Vulcan. Sandman 25, first appearance of the Dead Boy Detectives. This is a book, $27 VF. I sold a couple of fine VF copies on eBay for $20. I watched some of the show. It's okay. The one thing is, though, there was one episode I watched that I found, and maybe it's because there was a local connection, kind of disturbing, where they have to help. They're there to help ghosts, and there's someone who was a victim of a family murder-suicide, where the father killed the family. And it's, if that's going to be a problem to watch, just be aware of that. And because there was a local event that happened several months ago that a number of people, that I know knew the family. So anyway, Power Girl number 8, Irvin Rodriguez, 1 in 25. The first Cable. We know we're getting a Last Ronin movie. X-Men 130, a facsimile by Luciano Vecchio. I'm not sure if that's like the best facsimile I could have thought of. Beneath the Trees coming back, issue 1, cover A. Now that we're getting that in 9/8, $200 in a 9/8. And then at number 20, giving the list balance. Number 1 on the list is Dazzler 1. Number 20 on the list is her first appearance in X-Men 130. So there you go. So that's the top 10 list for this week. And I think what it says is that there are folks in the comic book community who are still going to do their specking. And we're kind of in a drought of new material, especially on the Marvel side. We're waiting for DC to get started. And, basically we only have a handful of movies coming out this year after the pandemic and the strikes. DC kind of rebooting. We know that James Gunn is shooting Superman. All those first appearances are, from the golden age. Let's get the first appearance of Perry White. Yeah, sure. Some of them aren't. But those did, his announcements have driven the market. And this X-Men 97 is showing that people are hungry for content and hungry to invest in comic books that makes a connection between what they've seen on the screen and what they want to own. And maybe they owned that book as a child and they're like, oh, I want that book back. I like that character, whatever it was. It was interesting, that storyline. I want to read it again. I read, before I sold one of them, I read the Dead Boy Detectives, the Sandman 25. I hadn't read it in 30 plus years. Said, well, I know it's time for a refresher as we're getting ready for the show. So I think that's not uncommon to seek out those books. And hopefully folks are reading these comics. That's really what we're there for, why we watch the movies, why some of us get very invested into how the properties are adapted for the big screen or the small screen, because we've always, for me, we always want to see those. Superman came out in 1978 when I was 11, 12 years old. And it was a formative experience. I grew up on the Batman 66 TV series and the old George Reeves Adventures of Superman. I did it as a youngster, watched Linda Carter in Wonder Woman, and the appeal of that show changed over the years as I hit adolescence. I watched the Super Friends, and then I watched those cheesy Marvel TV shows with Reb Brown, Captain America, Nicholas Hammond, Spider-Man. I watched The Incredible Hulk every week. So those things have always driven the market. They've always driven interest in these properties. If it wasn't for Adam West and Batman 66, I don't know if I'm reading comic books. I don't know if that becomes a passion of mine, to be honest with you. That's a lot of times what ignites it. Anyway, so this X-Men 97 is driving the market right now. And, it's getting fans excited, getting people interested in these characters and these properties and these stories. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. You can take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.